Hey guys, welcome back to the Fauna Rose YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Megan and I'm the owner of Fauna Rose, where I make and sell scrunchies, macrame items, decor, accessories, a whole bunch of goodies like that. And as you can probably tell from the title of this video, this is a little bit different from the sort of content I usually do. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys my best tips and tricks, not really hacks, but advice for going to markets and craft fairs, the befores, the afters, some do's, some don'ts, all of that kind of fun stuff. But before I do get into it, kind of like a little disclaimer, I'm not a professional. I don't even know if there is a course on this sort of thing, but I've done my fair share of events and there are a lot of things that I found that work really well for me. And I wanted to share them just in case there were people out there who are completely new to events and markets and craft fairs and wanted some advice. So please don't take everything I say for solid 100% word that you have to do this. This is just things I would recommend. It might be quite a long video, so go and get yourself a drink, maybe a snack, because it's quite thorough. So if you want to get into craft fairs, markets, events, anything where you're going to be like a vendor at selling your items that you make, the first thing you've got to do is, way before you even go to the event, is book events. So number one is finding the right market for you and booking onto it. There are so many different types of events, festivals, craft fairs, markets, so many different things. And sometimes you're not going to know if that event is right for you until you actually go and just try it out. However, you can do some little bits of research prior to this to find out if it's going to be the right thing for you. So for example, my previous business was very gothic, alternative, dark, edgy, witchy, Halloweeny, and I attended quite a few events that just weren't for me. They were a huge waste of my time. I spent a lot of it just sat there getting offended because people were not happy with my items. I offended a lot of the older generation and I would sit at a lot of normal craft fairs and markets basically wasting my time because it wasn't catered to the right audience. However, I then came across the night fair markets. If you have an alternative business, 100% check them out. Selena and Imogen, who run them, are amazing. The events are always phenomenal. I then did so well at every single one of the events because it was catered to that kind of audience. So if you were attending a vintage festival, you wouldn't go with brand new items. So always do your research beforehand. There is sadly a lot of scammers out there at the minute who are advertising events, taking your money and then just disappearing off the face of the earth. So be really careful, do your research and make sure these people are legit, these events are legit. So the footfall versus the cost, things like this can be really, really important. So if it is in the middle of nowhere and it's not been advertised, you're not going to have the footfall because people aren't just going to walk past and see the event and want to come in. However, you've got to remember that a lot of the footfall can't be controlled. No matter how well an event is organised, how well it's advertised, or if it's in a really great situation and place, if people don't want to come in, they're not going to come in. So bear that in mind. However, some events are ticketed and they will say, oh, we've sold 7,000 tickets. So that might give you a rough idea, but sadly footfall is something you can't really control to an extent. But just be mindful of where it is and if that could control how many people are going to come. The next part of finding the right market for you is the cost of the market. They range massively. They're all over the place. Some range from £5 a table, some range to a few hundred a table. So you've got to find out what you're willing to pay, what is going to be suitable for your business. So especially if you are a new startup business and say all of your items are less than £5, so you've got £1 items all the way up to £5 items and you pay £200 for a table for a day, you have to sell a huge amount of stock just to get your table money back. So you've got to factor in the cost of your items compared to the cost of the table and how much you would have to sell to cover that cost, let alone make profit. And also beforehand, the cost of the event, is it just for you to attend the event? Is the table included? Is a gazebo included if you're outside? You've got to include all things like that when you're thinking about booking onto these events. And speaking of gazebo, the next thing you want to think of is if it's an indoor event or an outdoor event. Here in the UK, the weather is horrendous. 9 times out of 10, it's raining, it's windy, and it's cold. So unfortunately, outdoor events aren't great for me because my stuff is lightweight. I sell a lot of lightweight scrunchies. If the wind catches any of those items, they're gone. But then outdoor events can be perfect for so many other people, like food vendors who have food trucks. You've got to think about if it's going to be suitable for you. When is it and where is it? How much time are you going to have to prepare for this event? Is it quite far in the future? So I've got markets currently booked for December and we're in March. Or have you last minute booked onto an event that's going to be next week? So you then have to think about, do you have enough time to prepare for it? Are you going to be ready? Are you going to have everything you need? Are you going to be able to book it off work? Things like that. And also, where is this event being held? held? Is it local? Can you travel to it? Are you willing to travel to it? So I try and stay as local as possible because I don't want to have to pay for petrol as well as the cost of the table, as well as get up even earlier for the travel time. So I try and stay as local as possible, but I do still travel occasionally for markets. When I also ran my own event, I had a gentleman show up late and he said to me, well, it's very far away, it's very out of the way, and he'd travelled less time than we had. And without sounding unprofessional, he should have checked that beforehand. Do not book onto a market not knowing where it is, not knowing if you are going to get there on time, and not planning your journey beforehand. So number 3 in my before market tips is public liability insurance. I cannot talk for other countries, this is just specific to the UK, but in the UK we have something called public liability insurance. A lot of events, a lot of venues and places will have their own, and you won't necessarily need it, but then a lot of events and organisers will ask you to have your own. Personally, I would recommend having it anyway. All it takes is someone to trip on your table or something to fall on them. You need insurance. It can be very cheap compared to the cost of having to pay out if someone takes you to court. I will leave the details of the people I use down below, which is a specific insurance for trading at markets. I think I pay around, I can't remember now. It's no more than £70 for the year. Also read the fine print of when you're booking onto these events, because some of them will only need 2 mil of cover, some will need 5 mil. And similar to this, you also need to think about the other legal requirements for your specific shop or booth, market table, whatever. So for example, if you're selling candles in the UK, you can't just make them, stick them in a cute jar and sell them. You have to have the legal requirements to sell them. You need to have the CLP labels on there and anything else that is required to sell candles. If you're doing food, you need certain hygiene certificates, I believe, or health and safety. I don't know, I'm not in food, but you need to look at specific requirements for selling the things that you're selling. Say you've managed to find an event, you've booked onto it, you're really looking forward to it, all that jazz. You need to actually start prepping for the event and having your stock ready. Make sure your stock is ready. Make sure you have enough stock. I've had a few messages from people asking how much stock is the right amount to take to a market, and in all honesty, it's completely up to you. I would always say have more than less, because the last thing you want to do is sell out and be turning potential customers away, but you also don't want to overdo it. But just take what you want to take what you think is necessary, take what you can make. You don't want to overdo it, completely burn yourself out, and then none of it potentially sell. It's kind of just learning as you go, or just deciding what you want to take. Just make sure you take more than like 2 things. Have it ready in advance, just so it's not stressful. I know I'm a bit of a hypocrite. Some of you might watch my vlogs and be like, you definitely don't do this, Megan. But make everything way in advance, just so it's not stressful, just so you're not trying to smash out items the night before, which I'm definitely guilty of. Just means that you can be ready, relaxed, prepared, and it be an enjoyable experience instead of it being just chaos and stress. So my next bit of advice when prepping prior to the event is practice your setup. Prep your setup, practice it, put it up, put it down. Once is probably enough, but if you want to do it multiple times, just do it beforehand. Trust me, it will make the day of so much smoother. I would always recommend having a very clean, tidy display, a very cohesive display, so something that is true to your brand, true to your colours. When it comes to your setup, I would really recommend using different height levels. There is nothing worse, in my opinion, I'm sorry if this is rude and offends people, than everything just being flat on the table. If there's people stood at the table, you can't then see from behind. You sort of have to look up and over and down at people's stuff. It just doesn't flow well, it doesn't catch the eye. So I would always recommend using different heights, making it quite a fun experience to look at. It just keeps it interesting. Us people, we get bored really easy. If something doesn't look nice, we just move on straight away. You want something that's going to catch people's eye and shows off your items, especially if these are handmade items you're making. You're putting the time and effort into making them. You want people to see them, you want to show them off, and just having them flat on the table doesn't really do that. So when you're practicing your setup, I would always recommend having clear price lists. Even if they're just handwritten, you can either have a price list where people can very clearly see what the items are. If it's a really obscure item, for example, all my scrunchies have names. If I just wrote Emma and a price, people would be like, what the hell is an Emma? So I have XL scrunchies, mini scrunchies, and the price, and it's a very clear difference between the two. I individually price my items and have prices on each of my boards and things like that, but then a lot of people have a set price list. Just price your items. Just trust me, there is nothing worse than being a customer, attending an event, going up to a table, seeing something you really like, and there being no price on it, and having to awkwardly go, how much is this? Don't make your customers ask, just have clear price tags on it. Because then if you don't want to pay that, or you can't afford that, that's then awkward as hell to be like, oh, and then put it back. Just have price lists. It's not that difficult. So once you've done all your setup, take a photo of it. It'll make your life so much easier for the next day. On the day, sometimes you're running off adrenaline, you can completely forget your setup. If you have a clear photo, you can just see everything how it's supposed to be. And if you are lucky enough to have a helper, send the photos to your helper. You can just say, this is how this is gonna look, can you go and do that? So after you've set it up, pack it all away in a nice, organized fashion. Don't just chuck it all into a box really badly or just throw it in the back of your car, because then it just makes setting up on the day so hard. If you've got a big trunk full of all your stock, don't put your tablecloth at the bottom. That is one of the first things that you are going to need. So pack it smartly. Also, time yourself setting up, just so it gives you a rough idea of how long it's going to take you on the day. Every event has setup time. Some people, it will take them absolutely ages to set up, but then my display doesn't take as long at all. If I take my time and it's myself, it usually takes me about an hour, so I don't need to be there 2 hours before the event starts. So at least have an idea of how long it's going to take you, so you know when you need to be there. So the next thing I would suggest is having a stock list. So this is an example of one that I made really easily. I laminated it so I can reuse it over and over again. I've got all my items, I write the number that I take, and then in the next one, if I sell it, I just do a little tick, just so I'm keeping track of my stock. So you've got everything, you've got your stock list, you've got your stock packed away neatly and organized. If you can, pack your car the night before. I understand this isn't right for everyone because you don't want your stuff getting stolen, but if you can put certain things in the car the night before, so your table if you're taking one, any displays, it just makes the morning off so much easier for you. Also, if you want to go to the extreme, pick your outfit the night before. And similar to that, pack your lunch the night before or make your lunch the night before. And then the final thing prior to the market is to advertise it. Some events do leaflets and some give them to the vendors to give out. Social media, fair enough, Instagram sucks for helping people get the word out there, but you never know who it might reach. So share it in all your social medias. If there is a Facebook page, an event on there, interact with it, share it, tell people, and just try and help spread the word as much as possible, because the more you advertise, the more it can help you get sales. I'm going to run through a list of the things that I would recommend taking to the market. So table and chairs, depending on the market. Like I said, some of them provide tables, some of them provide chairs, some of them provide neither. A tablecloth or a cover. This is so important. Most events will expect you to have one, and it'll be part of the requirements. You can get them off eBay, Amazon, you can charity shop, thrift them. I think mine was maybe like a tenner from Amazon. Just make sure on the day of it's not a tripping hazard. So next thing, a gazebo. So if you're at an outdoor event, they might provide you with one, they might not. You'll need a gazebo. A good one, a strong one, a sturdy one that's got weights. Next is a banner or some form of identification, so people know who you are, they know your business, and it's easy to see. Banners, again, can be quite affordable. I got mine off eBay. I will link it down below. I just created the artwork for it, sent it off, and it was made. Similar to this, business cards are something that customers or potential customers for the future can take away with them, that has a form of finding you or contacting you on there. So on the front I've got my branding, my website, my email, my shop name, and then on the back I've got my social media. This is also the design that's on my banner, and I have these out on the table for people to take. If people are just browsing, I will say to them, feel free to take a business card. If someone then buys from me, I will put one of these in there as well, so when they get home they can check me out online. These don't have to be expensive, you can make them yourself. The next, the obvious one, your stock, your actual stock. Don't forget it. So have all your stock ready, and also a stock list. So the next one is not essential, but sometimes it helps. Minor decor. You do not want to overdo it. There's nothing wrong with adding some things here and there to make your display look welcoming, bright, etc, etc, as long as it doesn't overshadow your actual stock. I have covered this already, but price tags and signs, just do it, just price them, price everything. The next one is a way to take payment. I would always recommend cash flow, and I would always recommend a card reader. Especially after COVID, a lot of people don't carry cash anymore, so a card reader is great. You don't want to have to turn away a potential customer because they're not carrying cash. I use SumUp. It's this tiny little square reader. It's amazing. The percentage is very, very low. I think mine cost me maybe £19. I will leave a link down below if you want to go and buy your own, and I think I've charged it once in all the years I've had it. The battery life on it is amazing. You have it on an app on your phone, and you just quickly type in the amount, and you can get the money pretty much straight away and send it over to your bank. It's just great. Most people do carry a card these days, so I'd recommend a card reader. And I'd always recommend a cash flow, because then you have people who don't carry card and only carry cash. So I would always recommend a cash flow, a few 20s, a few 10s, quite a few 5s, and then loads of change. But it is good to have both those forms of payments, and also put a sign on your table that states that you take both cash and card. Next, snacks and drinks. A lot of these events are very long. You're a human being, you need food, you need drinks. Take plenty. We always take a big flask of a hot drink and then loads of cold drinks and loads of snacks. Ways of staying warm. This might sound weird, but like I said, in the UK, it's usually cold, it's usually raining. Make sure you've got a coat. Take some gloves if you need. Wrap up warm. Take extra clothes. Take a flask. Even take a hot water bottle. Take whatever you need to stay warm, and vice versa. If it's a hot day, make sure you've got enough drinks. Take a fan. Whatever you need to do. So these I've sort of categorized all together, but little bits that you will need to help throughout the day that you might not realize you'll need. So scissors, tape, string, pens, stationery sort of bits that might really help you out on the day. Some zip ties, scissors, they always come in handy. So little things like that. I always take like a pencil case with like little knickknacks like that, because you just never know when you're going to need them. Next is some form of packaging. If someone buys something off you, you don't want to just hand it to them and be like, thank you, especially if it's a breakable item. So you can take tissue paper, bubble wrap, and paper bags. So the next one, not always easy to acquire, but a person. Take a helper with you. I'm very lucky that Alex attends a lot of my events with me, and he is an absolute angel. He makes my life so much easier for events. He helps me with loading the car, unloading the car, carrying my heavy displays, setting up. He helps sell my stuff for me. He keeps me company. You're gonna need to go to the toilet and things like that. So at least that way, you can have someone who will stand at your stall and potentially sell your items, or talk to your customers, or just say, oh, she's just nipped to the toilet but she'll be back in a second, but I'll try and answer any questions. So if you can take a helper, I would 100% recommend it. 9 times out of 10, the people on either side of you will be very nice and will keep an eye on your stock if you do need to go to the toilet anyway. So you don't need a helper, but it makes it so much easier. Next thing, I do recommend this, but only to an extent. Some form of entertainment. Some of these events can be very long, and sometimes you might have no customers, you might have no people in that room for the entire day, and it can get very boring, it can be very long, and it can also be a huge waste of your time. So my entertainment sometimes is I take macrame or macrame, depending on how you say it. I take the cord and I will sometimes just make an item behind there, so I'm still present, I'm still able to talk to people. It means I'm not wasting my time, I'm actually getting some work done. I've been to an event where the lady next to me did all her taxes, so I think as long as you're still present and not ignoring customers, maybe take something to entertain yourself for the day. The next one, a bin bag or some form of rubbish bag or cleaning up stuff. If you're at an event where there's food vendors, there's usually bins provided, but I like to keep one behind me for any of the mess I make. Next is some form of transportation for your items, so like big bins or a big trunk to take everything in. Don't individually put all your stuff just in your car floating around. Just have the big bins ready, because that way if you have certain stuff that you only use for markets, you can keep that all in that big bin or big plastic tub. You can get ones that are on wheels to make it easier to carry in and out, just whatever is suitable for you. And then finally, I'm probably missing so many things off this list, but chargers. If you are using a card machine, you're gonna need a phone charger. I have all the wires for my card reader, even though it never needs charging, and I also take a portable charger. So anything electronic that you will need and might need to charge, just take your chargers. And I think that's kind of everything for that list. So next, moving on to the day of and during the market, things I would recommend. Number one, be there early or be there on time. I did mention this previously, but if you know how long it's going to take you to set up, also know how long it's going to take you to get there. Also factor in the parking situation. You're going to have to unload, potentially move your car to park. Some events have no parking, so you have to then drive and find a car park. So be there early enough to get everything sorted, everything organised without running around stressing. And it also gives you a chance to finish setting up and quickly have a walk around and have a look at the other vendors before the event starts. The next thing is get set up quickly but safely. Make sure your whole space that you are responsible for is safe. There should be no tripping hazards, there should be no sketchy or dodgy displays going on. Make sure it's tidy and looks professional. You've got to keep yourself safe, you've got to keep customers safe. At the same time as trying to keep it looking professional and everything, you still have to think about the safety side of things. So the next one, chat to people. I know not everyone's an extrovert. There's a lot of introverted people out there, a lot of very anxious people. So I get it, talking to people isn't for everyone. But sometimes you do have to try and push yourself out of your comfort zone, and talking to people at markets is one of the best things that you can do. You might take home no money that day, but what you might take home is new knowledge, new connections, new friends even. So events are great marketing and networking opportunities. And from speaking to other vendors and customers and just other people at the events, I've learned quite a lot of things, and I'd like to think that I've also helped other people, gave them tips and tricks, and they've learned from me. There are certain things I wouldn't know unless I had spoken to some people at events, and it's always a learning opportunity, so just speak to people. I have briefly mentioned this, you are going to need the toilet and things like that, but don't leave your table for long periods of time. There is nothing worse than going up to a table and the person just not being there, and then someone saying, oh, they'll be back in a minute, and the person just doesn't return for ages. It's like, where are they? You have to be present, you've got to be there. Obviously sometimes it can't be helped, you might have to take a phone call, you might want to go and buy something, you might need the toilet, you might have to get food, which again is why it's good to sometimes have someone with you. But just don't wander off. Don't just leave your table just because you can't be bothered. An hour later you think, oh, I'll probably go and return. Just don't. It's very unprofessional. You're there to represent your shop and sell your items. Don't just leave it. The next one is be friendly and approachable, but don't be overbearing. Try and say hi to every person that comes up to your table. Not every single person will say hi back. You will get ignored by a few people, which can be very awkward, but just say hi. It's customer service at the end of the day, and talking to people can get you a sale. But at the same time, you don't want to be forcing your items on other people. Don't be like, oh, you should get this. Oh no, actually you would have this and I think it'd look great with it, because they're just going to be like, I don't even like your items. Just be chatty, approachable, friendly, smile. Don't stand there with a face like a slapped ass. Even if you do have a resting bitch face, fake it till you make it. Smile away and then bend down to tie your shoelace, relax your face, let all the resting bitch face come out, and then smile again. Which leads me on to kind of my next point. Do not just sit back at your table and do nothing all day. There is nothing worse than witnessing this, and I've got a quick story for you. I know this isn't doable for everyone. I know some people have disabilities, chronic illnesses, things like that, so standing up for long periods of time isn't doable for a lot of people, so that I completely understand. If you are sat down, just make sure you're still present and still able to talk to customers, but don't just sit back and ignore all your customers and look completely unapproachable. I did an event recently and I was dying at this because I was half laughing and half just like, oh no. But where our table and our display was, we then had a huge amount of space behind and then the wall. These people a few tables down from me spent the entire day sat right back against the wall reading newspapers. The entire event. So many people and potential customers were going up to their table, looking at the items, looking up to go and ask them something, realising that they're just chilling doing their own thing, and then they didn't want to disturb them. So many people just put the stuff down and walked off. I don't think they sold a single item. There is nothing worse than approaching a table and just seeing this, and then them not even looking up to say hi or anything. Oh, it was so bad. Just don't do it. Sit down, take breaks, but still be present, because you could potentially turn a customer away, and it's kind of rude. Again, I've mentioned this, but throughout the day, try and keep on top of your finances and your stock. Just makes your life so much easier. And also, unfortunately, people do steal stuff at events. Touch wood, so far hasn't happened to me, but I know people it's happened to. So at least this way you can keep track of your stock, see if people have stolen anything, and it saves you from doing it when you get home. I know sometimes events are a little bit manic and it's hard to do that sometimes, but if you can, it's a good thing to do. Next one, give yourself a break. They're long events, they're long days. I have a really bad back. I also have hip dysplasia in both my hips, so sometimes standing there is excruciating and painful, and there is no harm with sitting down and saying that to your customers. Just say, I'm just having a minute, don't mind me. They don't care. Just don't completely switch off and not touch your customers. And make sure you're eating and drinking enough. Keep an eye on your display while you're there, so if something sells out and you've got a spare behind, replenish it. A bare table does look a little bit awkward. And clean up your space as well. I've seen at events people will leave their rubbish on your table, some people will leave their drinks on your table, so just keep checking if you can. Just go around, tidy things up, neaten things. Again, a lot of people will pick stuff up and put it down, but it won't be how you've had it, so just make sure you're going and checking that it's not a mess. The next one, again, you don't have to do this, but I always think it's very polite to do this, especially because I've run an event and I know what it's like, but thank the people who've organised the event. Fair enough if they've been horrible, really rude and nasty. Fair enough, you don't have to say thank you. Like, I get that. If you just want to leave, I get that. But I always find it really polite, if you know who's organised it, to just say at the end as you're on the way out, thank you so much. Sometimes they might ask for feedback if there's something you think that could be improved, or even not, you just want to say it was great, you did a great job. It's nice to just be nice. And I'm not saying you should do things to get things back, but if you're then polite and nice to them, you can build a relationship. They might welcome you back to future events. If you're rude and you just walk past them and completely ignore them, they might not want to have you at their next event. So I think it's always polite to just say thank you, or I've had a great day, or just be nice, interact with the people, because they've put the time and effort into organising it. One of my most important things of advice is keep an open mind. I mentioned this at the beginning, but you cannot always control the footfall. You can have the most advertised event event, you could sell tickets to the event, and then not a single person can show up. You have no control over these things. So I go in with lowish expectations. I think any money I do make is great, but I just see it as a way to get out the house, a marketing opportunity to get the brand out there, and a networking opportunity. So have an open mind. Don't go in thinking, I'm going to make this much money, I'm going to sell exactly all this, because there is a very huge high chance you will be disappointed. A lot of people are skint, so even though you might see all these potential customers who your stuff could potentially be targeted at, if they don't have any money, they're not going to spend the money. They might just be looking for a day out and to look at some stuff. Don't take it personal, just have an open mind. And similar to that, not everyone's going to be nice. It is a form of customer service, and if you've done any form of customer service work, a lot of people aren't nice. And that's the horrible truth, and a lot of people will let you know that they're not nice. This doesn't cover everyone. I am very lucky to have dealt with so many really nice people, very sweet, very kind. Then I've also dealt with a lot of horrible people. Some people will tell you exactly how they feel. They will let you know that your stuff's too expensive. They will let you know that they do not like your items. They will let you know that their friend can make it for so much cheaper. A lot of people are very rude, and you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. So I always think to be the bigger person, just smile, grin and bear it, or just ignore them. So finally, in this sort of keep an open mind category, is don't be disheartened. They can be very painfully long, dreadful days sometimes where you make no money and it ends up being a loss, but don't be disheartened by that, because if you then just give up, you could be then turning away opportunities to do potential events where you could do amazingly. And some of my least successful days financially have been some of my best days out of enjoyment, where I've had a great time talking to other vendors and potential future customers. So try your best not to be disheartened if you don't make any money. I get it, it is kind of disappointing, but as long as you take each and every single event as a learning opportunity, you are going to take something away from it. We're nearly done, I promise. If you're still here. So finally, after the market, check your float money. So I try and keep track of all my stock and stuff, and then I go through and I recount my cash flow, and I make note of exactly what I've got, so then next time I know how much cash I've taken. So if I look at my cash float thing and I realise I'm running low on pound coins, I could go and get some for the next one. Share a thank you on your social medias, because some people from that event might have followed you, might then reply to that story and just say, I saw you had this, do you still have one? And I can then be like, yeah, here's my website. And then finally, give yourself a chance to rest, because these events, these markets can be absolute killers. Put your feet up at the end of it, have a coffee, give yourself a minute. And I'm pretty sure that is absolutely everything. I'm kind of dreading editing this video now, but I'm so sorry that that was so long. There's a very high chance I have missed some things, so I might put some stuff in the description, or if you guys can think of anything, please leave it in the comments down below. But I hope I've not bored you to death and that you've actually taken something away from this video. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please give it a massive thumbs up, leave me a comment down below and subscribe if you aren't. All my social media and the website for Fauna Rose is linked down below, so feel free to head on over there and check it out, or even go and treat yourself to some things from the website. But apart from that, I might catch you guys in my next one. Bye!